What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining. You guys already knew a video like this was coming. I do this for every single one of my cars that I've ever owned, and the CL is no different. Now, this video is going to be about the top 5 things I hate about my 2008 CL63 AMG. I love this car to death. I've always been a big fan of this body style, of everything, but this car is not without its faults. And some of these are very nitpicky. You guys will notice, just like I was on the E55, but we do have to talk about them because they are gripes that I have with it. So let's go ahead and hop in this video with number 1. Now, the first thing that I hate about this car, and hate's a strong word, we can say I highly dislike or I don't like, is this steering wheel. Now, not the whole thing. This, in my opinion, looks better than the clown steering wheel they put in the later S-Class in the 222 generation, but, well, I'm talking more specifically about this airbag. This airbag right here is the airbag that you can find in a S550 base model, a CL550 base model, a GL base model, R-Class base model, things like that. This car, and this is, there's no other way of me making this sound like, I'm not trying to sound like, oh, it's money and everything, but this car new was $140,000 starting, which is, I can't do the math right now, but I'll put it right here for how much it was, considering it now with inflation. And you're gonna put a steering wheel that's plastic, or an airbag that's plastic basically, with nasty sticky buttons in this car. I mean, the CL600 has a leather stitched airbag. Sure, it's V12, not an AMG. The CL65, leather stitched airbag, AMG. I don't see that. I can't see the disconnect there. Mercedes, what are you doing? I had the same problem with my E55. E55, top E-Class of its day back in 2004, and they put an airbag from a E320 in it. I don't get it. I really don't. Mercedes is... Thankfully, nowadays, their airbags look much better, and they're leather stitched, and, you know, depending on the kind, you get carbon fiber and everything. But what were they doing with this? This was the flagship car in 2008, technically. Sure, S-Class, SL, other things, sure. But this was the big boy. The CL was the most, technically the most expensive car, if we're not counting the SLR and everything. What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know. You guys let me know. Am I complaining too much? Is that too picky? This is what the leather stitched airbag looks like. Beautiful, high quality, belongs in a car of this caliber. This, no, it does not. Now, for the second thing I really dislike about this car is, and this is really weird, some of the interior materials. Now, I say some because overall this has a very nice interior. Leather, stitching, wood. It's super pretty. It's beautiful. But the climate control buttons made to look like fake metal, plastic. Why? They could have just done the same thing they did with the spinning dial thing. That's metal. Why couldn't you make these metal? I don't know how much. I'm not a developer or engineer or anything, so it might have been very expensive, but again, this is the flagship Mercedes in 2008, and it's plastic. The air vents, plastic. All the new S-Class coupes, metal air vents. Beautiful clock in the middle with the IWC AMG clock. Sexy, beautiful, great. Air vents surrounded, plastic. Alcantara over the headliner, beautiful. Door buttons for the seat, plastic. Am I being too picky, you guys? Let me know. I just can't. For me, it's why would you do this? Maybe in the base CL550 put plastic, whatever, but in the one that almost is the most expensive one, you're gonna put plastic everywhere. I mean, I know that this generation is better than the C215, which had a lot of plastic, but it does not excuse the fact that I paid, or whoever bought this car knew paid $140,000 in 2008, and there's just a bunch of plastic. Not everywhere. The door handles are metal, which is nice. The dial for the command is metal, which is nice. The seats are very nice. There's a lot of metal actually used, which is awesome. It's very pretty. But there's areas that, why? It wasn't really that expensive, or was the cost cutting and part sharing with the base models worth it? I don't know. Same thing as the airbag. But let's move on to the third thing. Now, we all love to listen to music. I know you guys, I know I do. You guys probably do too. I love to play my music in the car. I can't tell you guys the last time I listened to the radio in a car, because I don't like radio generic music. I'm a little weird or whatever. The problem is, in 2008, if you bought a C-Class, E-Class, or whatever, you got an aux port, which is fine. I mean, of course, I'd prefer Bluetooth or Apple CarPlay nowadays, but I could plug my aux cord in and listen to music. Not in this car, you can't. You know why? Because it has a iPod integration kit. When was the last time you guys heard of iPods? Apple killed them off, and they use this old school iPod 30-pin connector here. I'll show you guys. This is what it looks like. I had to buy this. They call it a Bluetooth dock off of Amazon. I didn't even know this thing existed. I had to buy this to use it in this car because I couldn't listen to music otherwise. There's no aux port. The Bluetooth in this thing, if it can even connect to my phone because it's so outdated, there's no music integration. It's only for phone calls. Why? Why would you put an iPod cable in here? Which I understand in 2008 everybody had iPods. That's how everybody played music and listened to it. That's fine. But why wouldn't you put the aux port right next to it? So for people that didn't use iPods, we could just plug our aux ports in and whatnot. Again, maybe I'm too picky. I don't know. It's so annoying. And I am planning on installing an Apple CarPlay thing. It's this module that you can just plug into the back of the command system, and then you just do a quick programming thing with the computer, and it has Apple CarPlay, which is great. That's what I'm planning on doing. But that's like $400 that I have to spend to make it. This works fine. Of course, you can use an XM transmitter. Those are terrible, static, constantly, just horrendous. I don't know. Again, I'm not an engineer. There's probably a whole thing behind it. And someone in the comments is gonna flame me for complaining about this, but it's just something I really didn't like when I first got the car. But let's move on to the next thing. Now, the next thing has nothing to do with the interior or anything. I know the last three have. The next thing is the amount of brake dust that the front rotors or the front calipers generate. Now, if you guys don't know, this thing has massive front rotors and a brake caliper. There are 4 sets of brake pads on each rotor in the front. Most cars have 2. This has 4. This is a 4,600-pound big body coupe with 518 horsepower, which it makes sense that it has this massive brake caliper in the front. You got to be able to stop this thing when you're doing, I don't know, on the dashboard it's got 200 miles an hour. I don't actually think it can do 200, but regardless, it probably can. It's only limited to 150, only 155. So I understand why, but the amount of brake dust that these things accumulate. I just washed the car today, so it looks great. By tomorrow, the front wheels are going to be black. They're going to be covered in brake dust. They're going to look like dark gray. I mean, it's probably because it's got good pads on it, which is a good thing. It's just, man, it's got a lot of brake dust. And it's even worse than like the regular S-Class. And you guys got to remember, if you go back further enough, a few years, I had a W221 S-Class. I know how much brake dust it generated, and it wasn't as much as this. This generates an absurd amount of brake dust because there's 4 brake pads. Again, very niche. I'm complaining about it. This is not really a serious problem. This is not even anything that, honestly, this isn't even really a problem. It's just something that really bugs me. Well, let's move on to the final thing. Now, for the final thing on this car that I hate, or hate's such a strong word, I can't say I hate. The final thing that I dislike when it doesn't work, I'm fine with it when it works, is the Mercedes ABC suspension. Now, that's ABC is term for active body control. Now, what is that? That's the Mercedes hydraulic suspension that these cars have. This came out in the W220S class with the CL in that generation as well, and it uses fluid specific, like ABC fluid they call it. It's basically looks like power steering fluid to raise, lower, constantly adjust the suspension of the car, and it has fluid filled shocks that adjust constantly. Now, why did I say I love it and hate it? When this thing works, this is the greatest suspension that I have ever felt in my life. This car will go over bumps and you don't even know you went over a bump. That's how smooth it is. It absorbs everything. It's almost like you're floating on a cloud. And sure, this is a performance car. The faster you go, the more the car lowers down to give you more downforce. It gets lower by, I believe, like 1 or 2, I don't know, I don't want to say inches, but around there. But when it doesn't work, when it breaks, it is absurdly expensive to fix. This isn't like the suspension in my E55 where it's fine, it's normal suspension, it's air suspension, but you know, it's expensive to fix. But when it breaks, you can just replace the shock and do all this, and it's not that bad. Here it's bad. One of these front struts, new from Mercedes, I believe is like $1,200, one of them. Now, the amount of pressure that this suspension uses, or the amount of pressure that this oil goes through this suspension is insane. I believe somebody online said it was like 50 or 60,000 PSI. It's insane. If one of these lines breaks on this car, you're gonna have a bad day. Fluid everywhere, it's gonna gush fluid everywhere, it's just gonna be bad. Now let me know down below, what do you guys think? Is my list too crazy? Am I just being too picky? Or is it legitimately a list that, yeah, you guys agree with? Let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy.